Gentlemen, you are going to have an incredible time in the next half hour. This is wonderful news that I'm about to share with you. It's been a long time since I've felt so much joy from news. Imagine you wake up one, let's say, October morning in 2026, right before the elections, and you turn on the two biggest news networks in America, and you don't hear that Trump is terrible. You're not being told every minute that Trump is disappearing, a spawn of hell, and that as soon as he's gone, the world will finally have an easier time living. Well, maybe not perfect yet, but much better than it is now with him. And it's not that they're good and will suddenly start saying something about Trump. No, it's just the fact that they'll stop talking. There will be fewer of these completely unfounded, nasty things. That would be amazing, right? And if this happens, it will be a shock for tens, if not hundreds of millions of viewers of these networks around the world. Well, you've already guessed we're talking about CNN and CBS.
CBS.
CNN is in every hotel, in every airport, all over the world, in every bar, and every second it repeats, Trump is terrible. Then they go silent for a second, say something, and then again, Trump is terrible, and then once more, Trump is terrible. And suddenly, instead of that, CNN suddenly starts, can you imagine, reporting something neutral, just what's happening? I'm sure that several tens of thousands of CNN viewers would commit suicide, running and hitting their heads against the TV. From where, nevertheless, what will still be coming through? So, is it possible to live even under Trump? How about under Trump? Turns out you can live under Trump. I mean, maybe they won't say anything good. They'll say things just like, like they do on, on Newsmax, right? No, I mean, they just won't say nasty things, and that alone will be a revolution for millions and millions of people, and those living in Ukraine will be shocked. And those who live in Belgium will be stunned. And those who live in Israel will be amazed. Most importantly, some of them live in the United States of America. Well, and the only thing these people watch is CNN, because everything CNN says is, from their point of view, 100% true. Well, what happened that I'm saying this nonsense, right? But everyone understands that not a word of truth from these networks will reach us. Well, it didn't reach us before, it doesn't reach us now, and logically it won't reach us in the future. That's a mistake. Let's talk about that. You will be absolutely, as I already said, stunned, amazed, and delighted. So, major media outlets are trying to present this story as a kind of reverse journalism story, right? But I'll show you now that, although this is certainly very important, it's actually, I would say, the smallest detail. But first, let's be honest and agree on something. What did you think? That you would get something out of these 30 minutes so that you have a reason to stay, right? But first, let me tell you what you won't get. You won't get any lies. No matter how sweet a lie might be, you won't get it. Sorry, we're on a diet right now. We simply don't have any lies here, right? You won't get any fantasies either. Oh, and you also won't get wishful thinking, like, oh, I wish it were this way, let's just pretend that's how it is, right? And you won't get any dirt, just for the sake of dirt, okay? That's it. How are we seriously different from the many Russian-speaking bloggers who are on the other side of the dirty trough? I don't mean the ocean. What will you get? First of all, I'll break down the deal that most channels summarize in one sentence. And you'll see in it who bought whom. For how much? It's not very important, but it's amusing to hear. And why? This way. It turned out to be so much money that you could actually buy, well, 2 countries. Secondly, and this is something that, as they say, few people will tell you, I will give you real quotes. Not a retelling, not what they say, but the actual words that the hosts, well, let's say from CNN itself, said on air about Trump, about Israel, about us. You will hear them and decide for yourself whether this network deserves what is happening to it right now or not. Or what a horror, what's happening to it, right? Listen, everyone listen, and I won't decide for you. That's not my job. My job is to dig things up. Thirdly, I will answer a question that seems like a paradox. What's scarier, when a TV channel starts praising a politician or when it just stops criticizing him? Here's a hint. The correct answer will scare you. And finally, closer. And finally, I'll give you a number. 1. It's not about Israel or Trump. It's not about politics at all. And that's exactly why it's the most dangerous thing in our entire story. I could name it right now. But if I name it now, you won't understand why it makes the hair on your back stand up. Well, for those who have hair on their back. So let's go step by step. If you're not interested in who argued with whom, but rather in how the machine actually works, how it's built, which decides what you will think tomorrow, then stay. This is exactly what this is about. Let's begin with the person now making all the headlines. Bari Weiss, in all the headlines. A journalist, bright, uncompromising, openly pro-Israel, former New York Times, you might say. Yes, but she left there in a scandal. And with an open letter in which she accused her own editorial office of harassing those who think a little differently than what is allowed. And who decides what is allowed? Whoever is supposed to decides. She wrote in an open letter to the most powerful newspaper on the planet, "You called me a Zionist and a fanatic. I'll answer right away and clearly, I am guilty on every one of your charges." Ladies and gentlemen, so it's clear that she's not a fanatic. This is important for an honest picture. She sharply criticized the Netanyahu government and many aspects of Israeli politics. She's not just a prop, she has her own position. In 2021, Bari Weiss launched a small independent publication. It was called Free Press. The subscription quickly jumped to 1.5 million people. Out of those, about 100,000 to 170,000 were paid subscribers. Well, actually, of course, that's just a drop in the ocean for something like the New York Times, but it's still astonishing. 175,000 paid subscribers. In addition, it also released, well, for about 1.5 million. It's a good, lively story, but by the standards of big media business, it's a tiny one. Now watch closely. In October 2025, the Paramount Corporation buys this little newspaper. Yes, it's an online newspaper. How much do you think? For $150 million. Chow, $150 million for a newsletter? Well, like a newsletter sent by email. So, remember, this is not a match. We'll come back to it. Because when the price doesn't make sense, it means they didn't buy what was written on the receipt. They weren't paying for the newsletter. They were buying the editor. They were buying Bari Weiss. And on the same day, Bari Weiss becomes the editor-in-chief of CBS News, one of America's 3 legendary broadcasting networks. That very CBS, where, well, Walter Cronkite once worked. A man whom the country trusted more than its own government. Paramount wasn't buying a small newspaper. Paramount was buying the editor who had a contract with that small newspaper. Well, when she was drawing up the charter for her own company, so to speak, she wrote that she was the editor there. They were buying a worldview, they were buying character, they were buying conviction, they were buying an uncompromising nature, and they put all of that at the helm of a huge network, one of the 3 largest in America. And that would have been the end of the story. Well, the editor changed. It happens. They fixed it, right? But then something happens, and that's why we're here. Because behind this whole purchase stands David Ellison. He's the son of Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, probably one of the richest people on the planet. And he's blown away by what 80 media outlets are saying and writing. Information about the great in the world. And he has a studio called Skydance. Well, first he bought Paramount, along with CBS. Because when you buy a company, it has already acquired a bunch of other companies over time. That's called a portfolio, right? He had CBS in his portfolio. And in February 26th, a deal was announced that took the media world's breath away. $110 billion for Warner Brothers. Well, what do you say? Think about it yourself. Hold on tight. Grab your chair, because Warner Brothers owns a whole range of TV channels, including... Are you ready? And whoever buys the parent company of Warner Brothers automatically becomes the owner of CNN. Major deals in the U.S. must go through the Department of Justice. Sometimes they're discussed in Congress and at the presidential level. In the Trump administration, Ellison's purchase of Warner, and accordingly, CNN did not raise any objections. I think people were throwing their hats in the air. Pure excitement. On June 12, 2026, the Department of Justice gave the green light. The deal will be closed by the fall. Do you understand what that means? Let's say it slowly, because this is a moment that deserves to be said out loud. One person, David Ellison, gets control. 2 of the 5 largest newsrooms in America, CBS and CNN at the same time. And the editor whose worldview he sets is Bari Weiss. In the Ellison family, there is openly, without hiding, pro-Israeli power. Immediately after the October 7 attack, Skydance, under David's leadership, released an official statement in support of Israel and backed it up with a donation to Magen David Adom. Larry's father is a major donor to Israeli organizations. His oracle was built in Jerusalem. A secure underground data center for government and defense agencies. Remember this detail. About the data center, it seems now like, well, a second one, not unnecessary. Yes, not unnecessary. In a few minutes, it will fall into place and click, like the last piece of a puzzle. So a person with a clear position puts an editor with a clear position in charge of the networks, whose position was exactly the opposite. Clear but opposite. And here we don't need epithets, we need evidence. You don't have to take my word for it, right? Let's listen to what these networks, through their prominent hosts, producers, and so on, were saying. Just their words from the archive, okay? Krishan Amanpour, CNN legend, November 2020 on air. Against the backdrop of the anniversary of Kristallnacht. I hope you know that this was the pogrom that marked the beginning of the path to the Holocaust. She compares 4 years of Trump to what the Nazis did to the Jews. She has the audacity. I don't want to compare this with any epithets. Trump to what the Nazis did to the Jews. Crooked bastard, literally. So, she reported, that was a Nazi warning burst at our civilization. So, what Trump is doing, 4 years of Trump on the same level as burning synagogues. Since I know for sure that she's not an idiot, there's only one thing left. She's a scoundrel. I simply don't have another word for her. Oh, sorry, I found one more word. Snake. And later she admitted it. She shouldn't have put those 2 thoughts together. Thoughts. Do you understand? She thinks those are thoughts. She broadcasted it to millions. Thoughts. Her thoughts are side by side. Vile liar. The same Amanpour. In 2025, after the release of Israeli hostages, the hostages had spent more than 2 years in Hamas captivity. She suggests on air that the hostages may have been kept in better conditions than the average resident of Gaza. The hostages, some of whom died from torture, beatings, and malnutrition. Captivity by terrorists, better. And then she'll write that she regrets the wording, regrets it again after. Well, always after, right? That's their general tactic at CNN. First they say that something terrible is happening, which will cause public outrage, and then they wait there for 2 or 3, so to speak, days or a week, and then quietly say, maybe I wasn't completely right? Maybe, not entirely. Next is that guy from CNN, Don Lemon. Oh, what a scumbag. God, what a scumbag. Live broadcast. A quote that people in America still remember. The biggest terrorist threat in our country is white men. He's a black naked homosexual, so he's not a man. And a couple of days later, when the storm broke out, he didn't apologize. No, he said that we have more than enough evidence. As we say, he doubled down. Later, he was caught lying many times about what whites supposedly do to blacks, but that didn't bother him or his management. It didn't bother them, although he was eventually fired. When several dirty stories came to light related to his interactions with a woman, even though he's gay, and with CNN female employees in particular, but he had such a dislike for women, although for some reason he said that white men are the biggest danger, but at the same time he turned out to be the biggest danger to women. Next, Sarah Sidner, also a CNN anchor. In the first days after October 7, she went on air and, citing the office of the Israeli Prime Minister, reported a story that wasn't confirmed at all. It was just broadcast. Yes, she had to apologize on air personally, so did they just make something up? Some nasty thing about Israel? Then they claimed that they got this information directly from Netanyahu's office in Israel, and then after the public outrage, they quietly apologized. Yes, I'm Tiana Magne, international correspondent for CNN, writes about Israelis as scum. Well, I mean just scum. All of them are scum. I'm scum. Some of the listeners are scum. So this tweet, she posted it on Twitter. She deleted it later. But as we know, the internet remembers better than they'd like. Do you think she got any consequences from CNN for that? No, of course not. The management and main staff of this wonderful organization believe that Jews, especially those who move to live in Israel, are trash. That's it, and as they say, the cherry on top from the archives. Liza Aslan, who had her own show on CNN, publicly calls the current president of the United States a word that I won't say here in this clip. And even earlier, Kathy Griffin, the co-host of CNN's New Year's broadcast, posed with a fake severed bloody head of Trump. I wasn't mistaken. Well, actually, we parted ways with her twice because of that. After all, the severed bloody head of Trump was a bit too much, even for CNN. I'll give you a range of years on purpose to show that it's not just something that happened all at once, you know? It's not a single breakdown on a bad day. It's a pattern. It's a built-up reputation. And now a network with such a built-up reputation comes under the wing of a man who donated millions to the Israeli ambulance service and built a data center bunker in Jerusalem. Do you feel how the tension is starting to build up, right? Do you think there are a lot of happy faces and congratulations at CNN about Larry becoming the owner and Weiss taking charge? Most people will tell you this story exactly like this. The pendulum swung. They say there was a tilt to the left, now there will be one to the right, and that's how it should be. They end it there, but I ask you not to. You don't even need to put a comma, because this is where the part worth sticking around for begins. Now, as my Georgian relatives say, let me tell you one thing, which I didn't mention at the beginning on purpose. There is one episode in this whole story. Not about Bari Weiss, not about the Ellisons, not about Israel, not about Trump. A small one. Compared to 110 billion, it's a tiny amount. But it's exactly this that turns a beautiful drama about changing the editor into something else entirely. It should make anyone feel uneasy, both left and right, and even those who don't live in America at all, right? But first, you need to understand why both extremes in this debate, those who are celebrating and those who are outraged, are both wrong. And both fall into the same trap. Look at what Bari Weiss has already done on CBS. She took the lead a little earlier. So this is the best prediction of what will happen at CNN. Fired officially by mutual agreement, but in reality pushed out, the head of the London bureau of CBS. She worked at the network for 25 years. The reason, according to leaks, Weiss considered the coverage of the Iran gas issue from London to be anti-Israeli. There was a phrase along the lines of, they're basically like Hamas over there anyway. The segment of the 60 Minutes program about torture in prisons in El Salvador has been taken off the air. The reporter who made it directly called the decision political. He said that now the administration basically has veto power over what will be shown on CBS. Before that, the evening news anchors left. The team changed. The tone changed. This is a portrait of what will come to CNN. So by the fall, not a guess. And this is already a fact that happened on a neighboring network, and now it will simply be expanded. Now attention. Key point, turning point. Those who sympathize with Israel and are tired of biased broadcasts are probably thinking now, great, finally, justice. Those on the other side think, this is the end of the free press. And you know what? I'm, well, almost a libertarian. I'm for freedom of speech in the sense that Milton stood for it back in 1644 in his work, Areopagitica. Let truth and falsehood grapple in open combat, and truth will prevail. And that's exactly why I'll tell you something that neither side may like. Ellison bought these networks with his own money. It's his property. Formally speaking, he has every right to shape the editorial team as he sees fit. If a billionaire buys a newspaper and makes it the way he wants, that's the market. That's freedom. If you don't like it, don't watch. Start your own and compete. Go to others. There's plenty of competition, plenty of networks. That's how it should work. Anyone who shouts censorship just because the owner used his own property doesn't understand what censorship is. Remember this difference. It's the core of everything. A private owner doing whatever he wants with his platform is normal. This is the marketplace of ideas. There's no violence here. No one has taken anything from anyone without asking. And now here comes the very number that, as I told you, changes everything. $16 million, so what is that number? Before the deal was approved, Paramount paid $16 million to settle a lawsuit that was personally filed against CBS by Donald Trump. The lawsuit was because of how 60 Minutes edited the interview with Kamala Harris. And here's the detail that turns everything upside down. This was happening exactly when that same company desperately needed the government, the regulator, to approve its massive merger. Do you feel it? This isn't the market, it's something else entirely. When a private owner changes the editorial team, he's dealing with what's his. His own, it's his. He can put it wherever he wants, even under the bed. But when the sitting president files a lawsuit against a company that needs his own signature, well, the administration's, but it's his, right? It pays him $16 million, and according to rumors, which the company denies, they're discussing another $20 million in social advertising in his favor. That's no longer a free exchange. That's leverage. That's the power of the state turned into currency, used to buy the silence of the press. And here's my critical rule. That's actually why we're making this channel. If in order to accomplish something you have to take away a person's property, freedom, or life without their consent, that's wrong, even if someone benefits or feels better because of it. Ellison, who bought CBS, didn't take anything away from anyone, but when a president, any president, regardless of party, can use a lawsuit and a regulator to force a media company to pay and change its tone in order to get permission to operate, something is taken away from all of us at once. What is taken away is the one thing for which a free press is needed in the first place. And now here's the most important thing. Who pressed that button today? That is, a Republican. And tomorrow? Tomorrow a Democrat will press it, because a Democrat will be in the White House. And the button is already lying on the table, already tested. A precedent has been set. The price has been named. 16 million one signature. The one who is happy today because our people are finally in charge is giving tomorrow's opponent the same lever. This isn't a weapon for just one side, it's a weapon for anyone who sits in the chair, and someone will definitely sit there, well, not from those you voted for. Today they pressure those you don't like, and tomorrow those you listen to. As you know, chickens are counted, well, not in the summer, not in the spring, right? This deal will be counted in the most October, and it won't be counted by those who started it. Now, why is all this for the fall? Well, why do we keep talking about the fall? By October, November of 26. And for the elections? You probably expect me to say CNN and CBS will start praising Trump. No, no, no. And here is the paradox I promised at the very beginning. They don't need to praise him at all. It's enough for them to just stop criticizing him. Think about how much subtler and how much more powerful that is. Open praise is obvious. Audiences can spot advertising instantly. Immunity kicks in, the person gets tense and doesn't believe it. But what about silence? But you just can't see it. Well, how can you be outraged when it's not there? When a story on an inconvenient topic just never runs? When the tough question just isn't asked? When an investigation, silence, or doubt is dropped due to a lack of comments? When 10 bad news stories about a politician turn into 3, but the 3 good ones stay 3? No one lied. No one was deceived by a direct lie. No one, they just shifted the frame. And the worldview of millions of people shifts by a couple of degrees before the elections, and over a distance of a couple of degrees, a ship ends up in a completely different port. And that's why stopping criticism is more dangerous than starting to praise. A lie can be caught and refuted. Both Milton and Mill wrote about this. But there's no way to catch silence. You can't refute a story that never existed. You can't argue with a question that was never asked. And by November, 2 of America's 5 major networks are under one roof with one editorial hand. This isn't a vote in the election. It's tuning the very air the voter breathes as they head to the ballot box. Let me clarify what I mean. Before Musk bought Twitter, the air. Almost 100 media outlets were fiercely working against Trump. Musk bought Twitter, completely revamped it, and now it's not a pro-Trump platform, but one open to everyone, where any point of view can be expressed, which is a huge plus for what we call freedom. A lot of bloggers gravitated toward Musk, but the stronghold still remained with 4 major TV giants, CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, and also Fox, which shifted from right-wing positions to centrist ones. If now CNN and CBS become neutral, or as we suspect, slightly to the right of center, then the picture looks like this. Fox, CNN, and CBS will provide objective and possibly slightly more positive information about the Republicans and Trump than centrism would. And the 2 networks, ABC and NBC, are shifting from being extremely left-leaning beacons to, let's say, moving a bit toward the center. They'll be just a little to the left of center, mainly because Trump has sued the media several times, won each time, and they will be afraid to go too far. So what happened in 1922 and 1923 most likely won't happen again. They'll be afraid. You might say that's America's concern, but what does it matter to me? I live in Tel Aviv, Toronto, or Berlin. And now let's go back to the detail I asked you to remember, to the data center in Jerusalem and to the company Oracle. CNN is not just an American network, it's from America, but it's an international, worldwide network. CNN International is in hotels, airports, cafes all over the world, on every continent, for a huge part of the planet that doesn't speak Russian, doesn't watch local channels. For them, what's happening in the world is what CNN shows. Well, CNN is available in all kinds of languages, so to speak, I think. Yes, it's in English, it's in a bunch of other languages. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I think I've seen CNN in German and maybe in some other languages too. The tone of CNN changes, and it changes the worldview of hundreds of millions of people outside of America. And now put the 2 layers together. The Edison family, through Oracle, owns the infrastructure, cloud services, the data centers, those very pipelines through which the digital life of governments and companies all over the world flows, including a secured facility in Jerusalem. And through Paramount Skydance, now the mouthpiece of CBS and CNN. The pipeline and the megaphone are in the same hands. Here it is, the last piece of the puzzle that at first seemed like an extra part. The one who controls both what information flows through and how it sounds does not lack influence over elections. He possesses something for which we don't really have a proper word in the free world yet. Will something change in our world because of this? Yes. Quietly, without a declaration of war, without a single shot, the picture of what billions of people consider to be happening will begin to shift slightly in another direction, and most won't even notice it. You will notice, of course, because you are already trained. How many times have we actually talked about the same topic? Well, and if you've watched up to this point, it means you're interested, concerned, or worried about it. I can't say for sure. From my point of view, the situation itself is developing very well, but there is also a danger. This is exactly the danger I was talking about. The monopoly on the megaphone only works as long as people don't have another megaphone. Thank God, the right wing, we have a megaphone now. I would even say several megaphones. And as long as there is competition between the megaphones, everything is fine. Ideally, everyone would tell the truth, but only a very naive person would think that's possible. As long as there are interests, as long as there is money, as long as there is an opportunity to influence events, there will always be someone who will push their own ideas. Let's call it that, right? Their own desires. And if he manages to take control of all the mass media, like it happened here about 10 or 12 years ago, then that's an absolutely terrible situation. Therefore, if we can't achieve everyone being neutral, we just can't achieve that. And if we can't achieve that without bias, then we need to make sure that no one has an absolute monopoly. I don't care about a monopoly on shoes. I don't care about a monopoly on water, right? But I definitely do care about a monopoly on information, because everything depends on that. By the way, the phenomenon we call blogging also plays a significant role. Right now, you're watching proof of this. An independent person who didn't ask anyone, "Can I go on air?" Our fight is simple. Don't trust the silence. Notice not only what was said, but also what was left unsaid. Ask that very question, the one that maybe no one else will ask now, which means, on the big button, why are they showing this to me in this particular way? And who benefits from me thinking this way? I teach this on Uchu, how to ask these questions on the Roadmap to Freedom. It's a separate channel. You just practice this skill for 30 minutes. This is what freedom is. Not the kind that's given to you, but the kind that's in your mind. Because that's the only place where freedom begins. Only there. If you found this analysis helpful, give it a like. It means it helps voices like ours break through the silence of the big networks. On this channel, every day I briefly break down one news story with you. What happened and what it really means. And if you're interested not in what happened, but in how the machine that decides what we think actually works, I have a second channel, as I already mentioned, Roadmap to Freedom. There, twice a week, we dig down to the very root, slowly, deeply for those who love to think. For example, in the upcoming episode, I'll answer a question that we only touched on today. Is it even possible to legally prohibit the authorities from pressing this button? Could the cure we're introducing now turn out to be worse than the disease itself? The link is below this video. Come join us. Let's think together. See you soon.